Tonight's webinar is welcome to the presentation. How do they do that? The 10 personality traits of entrepreneurial community organizations and the people inside them. Now, have you ever wondered how come some community-minded groups stand out from the rest and get the attention, dollars and support, while you and others are watching on and wondering what's happening, what's going on, what's their secret? What are they doing that you're not? And have you ever wondered how you too could hit the spotlight for the right reasons and transform your community vision into reality? And it's not a game of chance. There are some what I call quirks or features of organizations and groups that are truly entrepreneurial and get out there, and they find that success, and others are looking on. And this is what the webinar is. The presentation is to have a look at this. So let's start with this in this presentation. I will reveal the 10 personality traits of entrepreneurial community organizations and the people in them. We'll look at what makes them tick, why they stand out, how they attract what they want, the number one trait that defines truly entrepreneurial organizations, and how you too can adopt those traits, cut through the limiting beliefs, and transform your community vision into reality. So before we go on, let's look at what brought me to this webinar. My name is Pat Grosse, and I'm from the Community Entrepreneur. And this is a little bit of a background as to why you should listen to me. Back in the UK, I worked in an organisation that worked with the voluntary sector, volunteer organisations and community development foundations, as they are over there. And I remember getting told, it was quite quirky really, getting told that in order to work in those kind of organisations, you needed to be involved with them first. And I always wondered about that. And then when I came over to Australia, I worked for 10 years in a government role. And in that government role, I was working with community organisations, and I got used to them and the nuances inside them and the personalities. And I could understand quite clearly why getting involved in a community organisation is a different mindset to having a job or a business or something like that. There is something quite unique about how personalities and relationships and visions get involved. So in 2010, when I came to a bit of an impasse in what I was doing, I found I could do more on the outside. So I stepped out, started up a business, and started working with training organisations, which spread out to the not-for-profit sector. So I was working with, I still am working with arts organisations, sports clubs, health, disability, charities, neighbourhood houses. So I have been fortunate enough, both in my government role and in my business, to witness all kinds of not-for-profit scenarios. And I've even audited, the audacious A word, audited not-for-profit organisations, and I've been working with committees. And so on the longest travel, on this journey, I've come across some truly inspiring organisations. I've worked with them, I've developed them. And in 2013, we introduced the Community Entrepreneur in respect of those go-getting clients, because I could see the entrepreneurial spirit within those organisations. I've mentored clients who've gone on to win awards. And so today, what I want to do is to share my observations of how they do that. But let's start by looking at the definition here of entrepreneurship. Entrepreneur, people think of risk takers and not being able to, to focus. But Peter Drucker defined entrepreneurship as the entrepreneur always searches for change, responds to it, and exploits it as an opportunity. So we're not just looking over here, there, willy-nilly. They're looking at specific opportunities. And I really identify with that, because when I was working in a unit that promoted the European Union, very much what we did was look to see what change was coming over the horizon. There could be policy changes which would lead to funding changes, or which could open up to opportunities for conferences. So I was working with a market leader simply because we were entrepreneurial in what we were doing. We were looking for the change. We were exploiting it as an opportunity to use it as promoting our programs and conferences and who we were to position ourselves. So I fully understand how entrepreneurship works and how it can be used in the community context. As we're going through, if you have any questions, please put them in the chat space, and then I'll seek to address them towards the end. Now, we've heard the saying that there are 3 types of people. Well, this is 3 types of community organisations. Those that make things happen, those that watch things happen, and those that wonder what just happened. And ask the question, which one are you? The picture here of the building site is a good example of one of my clients who made things happen. There was an opportunity to tender, to change or to redevelop a building that was occupying some land. The community wanted that land to be restored and used for community usage. And a tendering process was put in, expression of interest tendering process was put in place, and groups were asked to come up with their vision and their ideas. So this group did that, and they actually won through the process, and eventually they've now got a really nice community facility, community garden, indoor, outdoor space. They had a vision and they went for it and they made it happen. And it wasn't just making that happen. In order to do that, and as I explain as we go through those 10 traits, they actually embedded the whole process, the whole language in their organization, in their staff, in their committee, in their policies, in their procedures, in their planning. So they made it happen, but they made it happen in such a way that it became embedded as part of their organization. And in fact, now, instead of having 1 location, they have 3. Another story, but it was an example here of making things happen. They could have watched somebody else take that space, and then they could have wondered what on earth had happened when probably the dynamic in the community changed and probably not in their favour. So it was a good example there of that process, which will actually be identified by those traits, to show that if you've got a vision and you can see change coming, and you can actually make things happen. There's nothing to stop you as long as you've got the right dynamic in your organization. So, community entrepreneurs, the organizations and the people in them, they're energizers. They've got an entrepreneurial mindset. And I know that they are award winners. And they are inspiring, they've got stories to tell, but underpinning all of that, they are well organized. So, how do they do that? What are the 10 personality traits of entrepreneurial community organizations and the people inside them? Now, this is my viewpoint, this is my opinion, this is what I have gleaned working with community organizations for the best part of 20 years. And I've seen success stories, I've seen complete failures. But these are the 10 commonalities of organizations and groups that have reached out there and obtained success. So let's get started. Right, okay. Number 1. This doesn't mean it's the most important. In fact, I think the way I've put it so that number 10 is the most important, which I mentioned. But the number 1 trait, or number 1 of the traits they have, is that they have an entrepreneurial mindset. That they have a clear vision and goals. That they do think big, and they can overcome the fear factor. Now, I do quite a bit of strategic planning with organisations, and I do know that depending on the organisation and the flavour and the way they think is shown first and foremost in their strategic plan. If you don't have a clear vision, and if you're not clear exactly what a vision is the destination of where you want to be. And I see so many people, businesses, and organizations get that wrong. They're not clear. So a vision is that final piece in the puzzle. So for this group that we were talking about earlier, their vision was to have this community facility that was going to be occupied and used by the community. So it's important that if you do have an entrepreneurial mindset, that you're looking for opportunities and that your strategic plan reflects the change that is happening in your community. And I'll mention later one of the bugbears that I do have of some of the strategic plans that I've seen. They think big. They have an entrepreneurial mindset that thinks big. I have a client who, a couple of weeks ago, I turned around and said to them, "You've got the $1 million project, haven't you?" And what they did, and they did the calculations, and you go, "My, you're right." They started with an idea, something they wanted to achieve, and it did start small. But then they realized it was successful, so then they started to think bigger. And they were attracting funding. So they got a big leap of funding and they took that project to the next level. And they, instead of just running it, they looked at the opportunities in the community and they reached out to others, other stakeholders, and that project became bigger and bigger. And it's also now being funded for the next 3 years. And it was only when we were looking at it that project, which is now being rolled out in other organizations, has been so something the community has really taken to, and it's helped them to get over the period of time over $1 million worth of funding. They thought big of the impacts in the community, and they went for it. Overcoming fear. I see that quite a bit, false expectations appearing real. And you'll see there are some organizations who want to do something, some groups who want to step outside of their comfort zone. But there's always that fear of taking risks. So in order to overcome that, it's when they do have that mindset, it's amazing. By standing outside of their comfort zone, the benefits outweigh those fear factors that they had that will probably never happen. But it's there, it's in human behavior. So if you take on an entrepreneurial mindset, you make things happen. You step out of your comfort zone. And that's what these organizations do. That example again, organizations stepping outside of their comfort zone to get involved in this new development. They could have just carried on with what they were doing every day, but they took that. They knew that they didn't initially have the right skills, but that's what they did on their journey. They actually found the expertise. I was part of the expertise that supported them and mentored them through the journey, but they overcome any fear that they had before they started. The number 2 is that they take risks. And I have seen that back in 2010, which is one of the reasons why I moved into my own business, was moving from it in the training environment, government changes impacted on training organizations and the way they did their operations. And some were just, suppose they didn't want to take the risks. Others just went, let's go for this. They're ready for change. They embrace innovation. I visit organizations. I can visit 2 like organizations, maybe in different communities. I can see the organization that's very conservative and it's just doing business as normal. And then you see the other organization who actually is prepared to take a risk to get out there, for instance, at the moment, I see technology as something that needs to be embedded to make life more, especially when it comes to marketing. And as I work with organizations that have organized courses or programs for the community and technology. And some are prepared to take the risks, in inverted commas, and innovate and have this new technology, and others are just hiding their heads in the sand. And that's the difference between the 2 different extremes of organizations or groups out there. If you're ready to embrace innovation, that's good. But if you're not, then don't be surprised if you get left behind. The third is when threats become opportunities. And I mentioned earlier there was a change to a funding model which became a threat to people because their normal way they'd been doing things for the last 10, 15, 20 years was suddenly going to change overnight, basically. And I've seen that happen again, where community organizations have been dependent on a grant funding stream. And then the government changes its whole direction back in 2014, the consolidation of many of the federal social grants. And it led to organizations that had been sitting comfortably for many years, who hadn't really been innovating as they're going along, found that they no longer had funding, especially in regional areas, and we're seeing them be closing down. But now what we're seeing is that in order for that to avoid that in the future, organizations now are looking at opportunities to grow their footprint. And I know of a couple of examples, or you can see them everywhere, a couple of examples of organizations in New South Wales, because I live just about on the border, in New South Wales, who started off as small organizations who navigated through this cataclysm, however you want to put it, and they've come through, and now they've actually grown their organization substantially because the opportunities that came out of that situation, where it's like having a recession, and post-recession there's the opportunities that are opened up to them. So they shake off any cynicism when things are not going the way that they used to do. They do what it takes to move ahead, and they look for the opportunity, and they go out there and they make the change. Number 4 of the 10 traits is that they stand out from the crowd. As Henry Ford once said, if you do what you've always done, you'll always get what you've always got. And I see these organizations who belong to these networks, who do the same things, and they conform, basically. They're just the same as everybody else. But they don't actually do anything that stands out. And then they sort of say, well, we're not getting any traction in the community. Other groups are doing stuff. And what we found is a good indicator and a good starting point. I look at, again, I'm coming back to strategic plans. Because when I look at strategic plans, it's amazing, because you've got 2 types of plans out there. One's where the organization does a quickie. I call it a quickie. They don't invest. They do it internally. They act on their local evidence. They haven't really done an environmental scan. And look, anybody can do an environmental scan. It's not for the big boys, not just for the big boys. It's you can do it yourselves to do it properly. And what I find is that those who do that properly, they actually see something, and they act on that, and they go away and they find that there's opportunities then to take their organisation to the next level. I've just finished putting together the result, a strategic plan for an organisation, and they are go-getters. They are honestly go-getters, and I've worked that. This is my second plan with them, and we've done the environmental scanning exercise, and we've seen a community in change. And therefore, this is the organisation that came up with $1 million project. And it's not just that one. They've got other programs running as well, which are really getting out there into the community, and they are standing out from the crowd. They're being different because they found the opportunity and they found the need. And therefore, they're standing out above everybody else because they're able to respond to that need. They're different. They're not just, and I dare say in this case, they're not just a neighbourhood house. They are a community development organisation, and they've defined their purpose, they defined who they are, and they're standing out from the rest. So I'm just saying is that they dare to be different. They could have just done programs, etc., but they actually looked into their community and looked at changing trends. I love the Phoenix. Because community-minded organisations are not afraid to fail. They readjust their flight plan, and they take failure in their stride, and they rise from the ashes. I'm just looking here. There's no such thing as a failed project. I know that. Having worked in a funding body and having, monitored projects, all kinds of projects, they've never been a failure. They've been a learning exercise. And so I think that's basically an entrepreneurial organisation will see if it hasn't succeeded the way they wanted it to succeed, it's become a learning exercise, and therefore they're not afraid. They can readjust themselves up afterwards, and they can, they rise from the ashes. And I've seen that with, for instance, if you get, I'm mentioning funding because I do work quite a bit in that space, but if you're used to if you're not meeting your funding requirements and your obligations, I've seen organisations actually dare to look at themselves and go, well, actually, do we need this funding? Because there's two ways you become reliant on funding. But really what they looked at then was saying, okay, there's a reason why we're not succeeding in this. And therefore they looked and they said, okay, we don't need this funding. So they actually rose, they reinvented themselves, and they find that the income came in from other sources. So never ever let the threat of funding stop you from reevaluating and redirecting your flight plan. Number 6, I love this. I can tell you, all I have to do is to look at the value statement of an organisation and I'll know if they are creative. Their vision, because, truly entrepreneurial organisations are steeped in creativity because they're visionaries and they make their dreams come true, realities. I've seen them look at solutions, in villages, in communities where, say, the village bakery, or the pub has closed down and they've been taken over because the dream is there. How can we make this happen? I've seen the bushfires in 2009 and in 2010 in one of the communities, people were thinking, well, if there was to be another fire, because it was still very raw at the time, what can we do to help ourselves in this situation? And so they started to get quite creative and come up with this new concept called the indigo fireflies. So visionaries open up to creativity, and it's those ideas that actually flourish, and they're the ones that can, that will just take off, and it's amazing. Okay, so let's have a look at number 7, and this one I really like because the entrepreneur, it's a French word which means a go-between, and I'm really passionate about this because this is something that when I'm mentoring clients, this is one of the strategies that I get them to use to be able to change their mindset and to lead to a solution, and it works. And I've seen some really good, one particular CEO of an organization who really networked. And he networked. It's not just about networking in your community or in your community of interest. It's actually looking outside and saying, okay, this is our vision. This is what we need. Who can help us achieve those outcomes? And so you're looking outside of your immediate circle. You're looking at different stakeholders. And then the challenge then is, well, how do I stand up to those other stakeholders, especially if you're a small community group and you're somebody you're thinking, well, I'm just Joe Blogs, and that's that great big, go-getter, community influencer, counselor. Well, people talk to counselors, but somebody out there that that you're in awe of. And so what I do is I teach them to look at the language of the people or organizations that they're wanting to talk to. I then get them to look at, and this is something somebody called Jim Rohn, who said that you are the sum of the 5 people that you interact with on a regular basis. And so, and I use that principle to say, and I've used it with somebody who really wanted, spent so many years looking for extra accommodation, without success. And so we came up with a strategy, and the strategy was, to look at the language of who they were talking to and what their priorities were and how they could meet those priorities. But we were also looked around at who else in the community had influence with these people that they wanted to influence themselves. And so it was working with this person to get them confident enough, to get them to recognize that, I'm sorry, I'll give an example here, but a president or a chair of a committee or board is the same as a chair as a committee or board of a larger organization in terms of their position. I know it's bigger. So you have managers of organizations, for example, and because their title isn't CEO, and effectively they are the CEO. So you have to, working with them to sort like mind to like mind. You don't go and talk to somebody down the food chain. You're already admitting that you're not making the right connections. That's why many organizations and groups get stuck, because they're not looking at the right level and they're not confiding themselves in being at the level of the person that they want to talk to. So this is a stepping stone to that, is to have a look at the connections that you may have already access to, or that you could have access to, and that creates that stepping stone, that go between to the people that you want to communicate with. So they are change agents. They make those connections, and once they get the bug and get it, I mean, that's it. The world's their oyster. They're out there. They're not afraid to contact or to go up to somebody who could actually open doors for them. They drive and they've got positive energy, and they network with, say, other entrepreneurs. As I say, you need to have that energy flow and make an effort to find yourselves with people who have got that same energy and that same positivity and can benefit you. Don't get stuck in that same group that you've always been involved with, because that's who you will become. And by making those connections, they manifest the change. I've just seen it's a comment from there from Sheridan. They're making money, but it costs them in the end. Saving money, certainly when it comes to planning, definitely. Let's have a look. Okay, number 8. This is the woo moment. Out in the business space, the principle called the law of attraction is out there. Not something that you hear in the community space to the same level. And basically, one of the fundamental laws is that whatever you focus on grows. And this is, I can give you a really good example of this. Back a few years ago, when I was working in the government organisation, we had the opportunity well, actually, I brought in funding so we could do projects. And those projects would assist community organisations to build their capacity and capability of something. I can't remember, I think it was a partnership at the time. And we used a principle called AI. And I don't mean artificial intelligence, I mean appreciative inquiry. And that went by the premise that if you focus on something negative and you keep thinking about it and you talk about it, it becomes 10 times worse. And we all understand that. But what if the opposite was true? And that you start thinking about, start talking about the positive. And so this particular partnership, I remember now, it was between different levels of organisations. It even had TAFE involved. And and it was like building relationships, but we found that when people walked into the room from the different organisations, there was a new atmosphere. It was weird. It was positive because we generated the energy. And that was the one project where we started with around 8 people and ended up with about 50 from different organisations, because they'd heard about it and wanted to be part of it. And that was based around the law of attraction. Whatever you focus on grows. So if you're successful as an organisation, you're going to find that you're going to attract success, because if you're, for instance, I give you the basics, if you're being successful in applying for funding, running a project, it's had some amazing outcomes, you're going to attract more money. That's the example of the $1 million project. You attract more money and more support, and because of the success factors around there. So if you're an organisation and you're looking another organisation and you're looking on at this one out there that just seems to be attracting more and more, it's quite simply because they literally have all their ducks in a row. They are perceived by others as lucky. But what they have done, they've worked very hard, but they've become that quite intuitive. They've attracted the funding. They've been in that positive space, and it's all through that confidence, that mindset to take the risk, to be entrepreneurial, to make those connections, to do their planning, to have that vision, to have that goal, and to go for it. So they're not lucky. They're just good operators. They've done their homework, and that's why they're where they are. It's taken them some time to get to that spot. They just weren't lucky overnight. They've actually put a lot of energy into it. Number 9, we're getting there. They are leaders. They're leaders in the community. And again, I see that in their strategic plans. And it's not just a word. They look at ways to demonstrate their leadership. They've identified what we call their USP, their unique selling proposition. They've identified what makes them stand out, what makes them different, what they can offer. Which actually helps them to position themselves as leaders in their community, because they know exactly what they can achieve. They've got a strong sense of justice. They've got definiteness of decisions and plans, and they're willing to assume responsibility. They don't want to take over the world, but they are willing to take responsibility. And they will communicate. Good leaders communicate. I have seen partnerships in the community between different groups, different levels, and if you do not have a good communication plan as a leader, then you're going to leave everybody else behind and you're not seen as a leader. But these guys do. Now, this to me is the most important trait of being a community entrepreneur. And that is that the organization is bigger than the individual. Sure, there's going to be somebody who's driving it, but the key to this is that if that person was to leave, how quickly would the organization fall over? And if it's just like that, and I've seen that happen, then the organization has not been entrepreneurial. It's been going along with the personality and drive of an individual. And so it's important. It's great to have that, that the entrepreneurial person who's putting their energy into this, but the organization needs to respond and take leadership. And so it becomes part of your strategic plan. Again, I'm mentioning that your strategy for the next 3 years, so that it's not stuck in if something happens tomorrow, where do we all go? It's there. It's in that direction. It permeates from top right through the organization. So the board, committee, whatever you are, if it's in the plan, then that's an indication of how they're feeling, of how they're working on this entrepreneurship. Again, the organization I've just been working with recently has got entrepreneurship. It's embedded within in their plan. It's in their vision. It's in their mission. Obviously we've sort of boundaries around, but their staff are encouraged. In fact, their staff, success breeds success. Policies and procedures and the values in their organization. It's a primary value, so that if somebody was to leave, or to whatever reason they're not there anymore, it's the organization that's entrepreneurial, that there's a plan in place that they can carry on regardless of that person who's no longer there. The key is that the next person who comes along must be somebody who can fit with those values and that vision and that plan. And that's where the tension happens when they don't. But the organization itself is the entrepreneur. It's bigger than the individual. It takes responsibility. It's part of it's there, it's in the senses. So that to me is the number one trait of an entrepreneurial organization, when you see it embedded throughout the organization. And even, the board themselves, each and every member contributes to the entrepreneurial thinking of the organization. So if we were to look at 10 steps to manifesting your community vision, these are what I would tell you. One is to adopt an entrepreneurial mindset. Remember, look for opportunities. Respond to those opportunities. Well, look for change. Respond to that change. Come up with opportunities and run with them. To things like, not to be limited, but to actually get out there. To engage with a strong vision, the destination of where you want to be. Feel it, think it, be it. But that's that has to be there, because if you haven't got the destination, where on earth are you wandering? Number 3, as I said, be prepared to take risks. Because if you don't, you're stuck in the same rut. You're not going to create that change. Be the phoenix. If you are going to fail at something, or shall I say, learn from something, then get back in there. Get back in there and reinvent yourselves. Dare to be different. Stand out from the crowd. Look at what's going on and do something. Innovate. That's the key, is innovation. Prepare to fail fast and move on. Be the entrepreneur. Be that networker, or make those connections. Don't be afraid of people's rank. Look at ways, who's out there who can make those connections and make it, and talk the language of the different people that you're playing with. A truly entrepreneurial organization will develop partnerships with other stakeholders. Get in the zone, be lucky, attract and act on opportunities. The more success you get, the more you will attract. I worked for turning around an organization in an 18-month period. And there came an opportunity for the regional government office, who needed to park some funding. And they came to us. We were lucky. As I said, at that point, we were, attracting funding. And that's because we got in the zone and we put everything in the place. If it had been 18 months earlier, not a chance. Number 9 is to be the leader. Get out there and make those connections. Be the leader. Look for change. Look for the gaps. Again, I'm working with a truly entrepreneurial organization. In their plan, they're even specifying to looking for the gaps. And when they find the gaps in their community, then how can they influence to be able to position themselves as the people to create the solutions? So that's, again, it's how they do it. Be leader, find the cracks, find the opportunities. And number 10, whatever you do, embed entrepreneurship in your organization, because it's no point. And I tell you what, it's a really lonely game for one person to be that one person that, if they were to walk away, and I know there are some egocentric people out there anyway, but if they were to walk away, and if it was all to fall down, then everybody loses. and most of all, the people that you're trying to help lose. So embed entrepreneurship in the community. So how do you do all of this? Well, if you actually imagine what an entrepreneurial mindset could mean for your group, your organization, or your community, what does it look like? What are people saying about your achievements? And how do you feel? Are you ready to change the world? Well, here are 2 ways you can start this change in your community. The first thing that you can do is you can nip to http entrepreneurial-thinking.gr8.com, and you can, I'm just going to type this in here, type this in because I know you may be behind me. And you can download I do believe I spelled it properly. You can actually download a free analysis guide going through those 10 traits on with questions to see how your organization or group or whoever you are is traveling when it comes to entrepreneurial thinking. You can go straight to entrepreneurial-thinking.gr8.com, or you can access it from our website, which is thecommunityentrepreneur.com, and we will send those links after the webinar. Okay, so that's the first thing that you can do. The second is that you can, this is something that we offer for you, and the picture there, the image there, is from another entrepreneurial client of ours, and they have come a long way in a short space, well, not short space of time, they've been going a long time, but they've actually leapt forward over the last 18 months to 2 years. And I know at the moment they're going through further change. They've got somebody now actually looking at all their initiatives, and they're creating videos, short videos that can be used to again further influence others and show people in the community. They're going to put them on their website, they're going to put them in their social media. They're the gems that you know about, but they are the success stories. And this is actually a board in their building on one of their walls. It's a fantastic vision board. So, and I know that there's a funding body out there that's using a similar, obviously taking a picture from the same source. So what we can do for you, and we have clients who have actually made some massive leaps and their organizations have moved forward, is to offer a 6-month mentoring program. So we can actually identify your specific goals as an organization, your vision, where you want to go, and it could be it's definitely going to be a challenge, something that you've not been able to address, to get over. So it's going to be something that you're going to look at, a change of the way you think about things. So we work with you to develop a plan of action, and we're going to what we do is we incorporate some entrepreneurial principles that change mindsets and open up different ways of doing things. And these entrepreneurial principles have come from the business space, and I've worked with them in the community space, and they do work. And the whole of the mentoring program is focusing on achieving the results that you are looking for. Brian Tracy, business guru, says 90 to 95% of people will withdraw to the comfort zone when what they try doesn't work. And that's true. If you're going to go out there and it doesn't work first time, overcome those barriers, there's going to be 5 or 10% who will continually improve themselves. They'll continually push themselves into the zone of discomfort. And these are the highest performers in every field. So why am I saying that? Because to work with us and to get those results, you must be in that 5% who are willing to do something, who will go away and be accountable, to take on board some of the learnings that we're going to work with you on, just to be able to unlock that challenge. So it's about being committed, being prepared to change your perspective. And we say be focused, hungry and driven. That's why we love it when somebody comes forward with a challenge that they've been unable to unlock, and they're going to get satisfaction from the results. So, okay, so I'm saying that, but I've just put a couple of clients here. Now I've just given the names of people. So Kate here, and these are ones who are working with local government. They've made some fantastic inroads. They've achieved some wins. They've won awards. But within all of that, Kate is the CEO. She's the manager, but she's the CEO. So I've been working with her personally. I've been working with her committee/board, and I've also permeated through to the staff there, and they've grown immensely as an organisation over the last 3 to 4 years. And their initial problem, and they were the ones who had the 10-year challenge of securing new premises, they achieved that within 12 months. Jill, again, another organisation. They're the small organisation who's looking on and making those connections with TAFE, for example, a large organisation. So working with that, giving themselves permission to be entrepreneurial and not afraid to take risks. And so with what we've done with Jill and our organisation initially was to unlock that, do everything in the same way and step out and be different from the rest of their colleagues, basically, the others like them. And now they're standing out and they're creating change. At the end of the day, it's a community that benefits, and they've got this whole new training concept in an area where there is no TAFE or registered training organisation, and they're bringing this whole hub to their community. So they had a vision, working with Jill, helping to unlock initially and give themselves permission to move forward. There are a couple of examples of some of the clients we've been working with. If you're interested and want to know more about our Entrepreneurial Thinking Mentoring Program, then go to tinyurl.com/TCE booking. And again, we will put this